The first Game Jam took place in 2002 between quite a few names you might recognize today, including indie heavyweights like Casey Muratori, Chris Hecker, and Jonathan Blow, just to name a few. Ludum Dare, the first electronic Game Jam, started just a month afterwards and has continued regularly to this day. The Global Game Jam, so-called the world's largest game jam, started in 2009 and has steadily expanded, most recently adding Kazakhstan and several southern African countries to its list of participants as of 2019. Global Game Jam is sort of like Ludum Dare in that they're both digital, but Global Game Jam is unique in that it has physical jam sites where you can go and meet people face to face to make games together. Its culture is pretty unique and highly dependent on what jam site you go to, but in general it's much more laid back compared to a competition-oriented game jam like Ludum Dare. With that being said, the easiest way, I think, to fail the Global Game Jam is to try and win. Really, the focus in this Game Jam, even if there are awards at the end, is to have fun. Even if it's not necessarily to win, you want to have some objective of what it is you want to do within the time you have available to you. So that could, for example, be to complete a game. It could be to complete the best game you can. It could be to learn some new technologies, or maybe it could be just to make new friends. But whatever it is, I think if you go in with an objective of something you'd like to focus on, you'll get a lot more out of it. Some people would say that learning a new technology on a game jam isn't a great idea, but I would say if it's a physical game jam like the Global Game Jam, that could be a really good opportunity for you because you can meet face to face with people who might have a better understanding of the technologies you want to learn. And that sort of one-on-one tutoring can be instrumental in learning new technologies. For example, at my first game jam, I went to San Francisco at Game Nest, and we built a game in Unity, which I had never programmed with before. And it was amazing because I felt like I was with celebrities, right? These were people who were in the games industry, a lot of them, people who knew way more than I did, and I just got a ton of learning out of it, even though I didn't know how to program barely at all, right? And so I got to meet with people who were way better at programming than me. I got to work on a team with Jolie Menzel, who then went on to be a lead narrative designer at Ubisoft, and she's so funny. And we built this game called Tindymon, which was Tinder for Pokemon, and it was pretty simple programming, but focused on sort of getting a lot of fun out of what we could in the narrative department, and it was just so much fun. I later put it on the App Store, and I got so much out of it, and I don't think I would have had as much of an amazing experience if I came in with a resolute picture of the exact game I wanted to build. You need to come in with, some ideas of what it is you want to focus on, but with, at the same time, enough, relative leniency to kind of go which way the wind blows and support a team when needed. But with that being said, people go to game jams for all sorts of reasons. Someone might go because they do want to just focus on learning a new technology. Someone might go because they just want to focus on teaching. So if you are really good at Unity, that could be an amazing way to give back to the community, is going to a game jam and helping people build the games that they want to make. Additionally, the experience could be very different based on what your expertise is. For example, an audio developer is not necessarily needed throughout the whole course of a project. And so what I've seen very often is that in a game jam environment, someone who's really good at creating audio might work on 5 different games at once and help everybody create a little audio for them, right? Maybe do a little two-minute loop here, a little 2-minute loop there, build out the background music for several different games at once. And that's really fun for them because they get to work on a whole bunch of different games, and they don't feel like they're sitting around during the time that their skills aren't being used. So there's a whole bunch of ways to approach this, and finding the best fit for you is going to depend a lot on what you want to do. And at the end of the day, there isn't a way to do it wrong, essentially, as long as you're having fun. But with that being said, there is another way to fail at the Global Game Jam, and that is planning too big. This is probably the advice you're going to hear more often than anything else, which is that you want to scope down. You want to make a game that's very small. And if you haven't made a game before, you'll understand exactly why. It's because to make a game well polished takes way longer than it does to make the game itself. And so if you make a very small game, it's going to take, even if it's a small game, it's going to take a long time to polish. If it's a long game, then it's going to take a way longer time to polish, right? You're probably not going to finish it. For example, Rami Ismail has a really good guideline, which is the 4-48-44 rule, which is that if you have 48 hours to make a game, spend 4 hours actually making the game and put the rest 44 hours into polishing it. Now, that's pretty aggressive for someone who's new to game development, someone who's maybe making their first game, because finding the fun, creating something that's actually an experience worth having is really difficult. And you might might not be able to get that done in 4 hours, frankly. But, whether it takes you 4 hours or 8 hours or maybe even the first 24 hours, finding that fun element is often the most important part. So if I were to boil down Rami Ismail's words into something I think a little more easy to understand, it's find the fun fast and then build a game around it to support it, right? So if you're building Mario, you find that fun jump mechanic and then you build enemies that you jump onto. You build platforms that you jump onto. You figure out what's fun and then you build a game to support it. That's the general idea. And if you're looking for a time frame for your first game jam, one option might be to have the design in place at the end of Friday, have a prototype in place by the middle of Saturday, have the game finished by the end of Saturday, and have it somewhat polished and uploaded by the middle of Sunday or whenever you need to submit it. That's generally the time frame most game developers hold themselves to. But again, it depends on who you are and what you want to do. So with that being said, there's one last way to fail the Global Game Jam, and that is to forget any of the following. Please don't forget that multiplayer is hard. It's really hard to make a game for one person. It's even harder to make a game for more than one person. Proc gen is hard. Procedural generation in general is just a hard thing to do. You have to tune it. That takes time. If you can handcraft a world, then just do that. If you can handcraft one level, just do that. Build a game that's going to be the template for the procedural generated game you want to build, in the next version. If you're looking at a game that could have 10 levels, which might last, 10 minutes, 1 minute per level, or you could build a really impactful 1 minute experience in just one level, do the 1 minute experience. You don't want to have the player leaving after just playing 2 levels and thinking, oh man, I have this amazing thing in level 5, but they're never going to get to it. That is definitely not something you want to do. With that being said, make the game accessible, as easy as possible to download. Hopefully, you don't even have to download it. If you're using something like Unity, you could do an embedded web player. If you choose to build a game that's completely analog, for example, Candyland, something like that, something like Monopoly, you want to build a card game that doesn't have any software at all, then, go forward with doing that. You don't need to know how to program to build a game, and you shouldn't need to know how to program to build a game. So you can build a card game like that, and you can have a lot of fun, and just keep in mind, you're going to have to find some people in person to play it with, right? So there is an accessibility component of that as well. Lastly, make sure that your game has a tutorial. If somebody does download it from online, they're going to want to know how to play it. Don't assume they know where to put their fingers or which buttons to press. With that being said, don't forget to have a game with audio. A lot of times games do exclude audio. That's something, it's an easy win. Don't forget to include it. And lastly, make sure you credit the people who worked on your game. It's very important to, if you're going to be using a resource online, you're downloading assets, you're crediting the people who helped you out, who worked on the game, certainly. You're going to want to have credits in your game. And of course, make sure at the end of it all, you had fun. Because like I said, Global Game Jam is a laid-back game jam. It's a game jam focused on having fun. It's very beginner-oriented. And if you're not leaving with some new friends, then you're doing it wrong, man. This is a game about meeting people and, just being part of the community. So if you're embarking with us on the Global Game Jam 2020, I wish you luck. I'm excited to hear what you do. If you make a game, please link it in the comments section, and I'll definitely play it. I'd love to hear what you guys are up to, and I'll let you know how my game goes as well. Thanks.